You don't have to spend a lot of money to look expensive and well put together in your clothing. In fact, you can spend a ton of money on your wardrobe, and if you're making these mistakes, your outfits will still look cheap. And if you're a budget shopper, there are free, simple ways that you can look out for to make your outfits look more expensive, so let's get into it. The first mistake that will make your outfits look cheap is not taking proper care of your clothing. Pay attention to the care instructions on every single piece of clothing, even if it was very affordable, because washing it improperly can definitely age it quicker and make it look cheap. Or if you spend a ton of money on a piece of clothing, say a cashmere sweater that was $500, and you wash it improperly, it is not going to look like a $500 sweater after that. So make sure to read the labels closely, and if you're unsure, a quick Google search will definitely give you some guidance. And another way you may not be taking care of your clothing correctly is if you're not storing them correctly. Be careful with those very cheap plastic hangers, especially if they have a very straight edge that will easily misshapen your tops and make them look stretched out. And when in doubt, always fold your clothing if you can, especially your sweaters. Your handbags should be properly stored and stuffed correctly so you don't get any unwanted indentations on them. And seasonal pieces like your winter coats, if they're just hanging in a closet, they can get super dusty, so make sure to dry clean them before the season or keep them in a garment bag so they stay nice and fresh. If you're unsure how to store your clothing properly, let me know if that's a video that you'd be interested in seeing here on my channel in the future. Mistake number 2 is if you're wearing clothing that is too sheer. You can spend a ton of money on a piece of clothing, say a nice silk blouse, but if it is looking sheer, it's going to look cheaper than you may have spent on it. I feel like this is a more common issue with leggings. That is definitely something that you want to avoid. If you are wearing sheer leggings, make sure your booty's covered because no one wants to see that. Sheer blouses have definitely been on trend a little bit more, like wearing pretty lingerie underneath, but if it's unintentionally sheer, that's where it can look cheap. I am totally guilty of this myself. I used to love nice chiffon blouses for work, and I would just wear a cami underneath. And maybe that was like a trendy thing to do when I was a little bit younger as a millennial. But now I think it's a very cheap look, and there's so many better ways to dress yourself. Mistake number 3 is wearing too many logos. So this goes for all of you who like to spend a little bit more on your wardrobe and you like to get those designer pieces. I would recommend 1 or 2 logos per outfit max. Ideally 1. It does depend on, I would say, the logo. If it's not as obvious, I wouldn't be as worried about that. But if you are just decked out in all these different logos, you don't want to be a walking billboard for a brand. You don't want it to look like you are just devoted to this brand. Mistake number 4 is wearing clothing that does not fit properly. And this can go either way. Wearing excessively baggy clothing, which is definitely a little bit more trendy right now, I think can cheapen your look. But if something is too tight, that can also quickly cheapen your look. An example of this that I see all the time is if your blouse is too small, especially in the bust area, ladies. So double check in the bust area to make sure your buttons are laying properly. You don't want them to look stretched out like they're struggling to be closed. If you see horizontal lines, that can often indicate that the clothing piece is too tight in that area. You're much better off sizing up and getting areas that you need taken in than the other way around. I know tailoring isn't something that can work in everyone's budget. I know for me, I'm not going to sit there and tailor every single piece in my wardrobe, but if it doesn't fit you properly to begin with, definitely consider if you're wanting to spend the extra money to tailor it to do so, or just keep looking elsewhere. Mistake number 5 is wearing wrinkled clothing. Don't stress yourself out over every single wrinkle. Clothing will naturally crease as you're wearing it throughout the day, especially if you're sitting in the office all day, or say you're wearing a linen dress and you get in the car, it is naturally going to wrinkle. If you're really wanting to take that extra step, you could always put a wrinkle release in your purse and fix it once you get to the location you're going to. However, the unintentional wrinkling that you can get in areas that aren't naturally creased, say you're wearing a blouse that you just got and you can't wait to wear it, they have those indentions and folds in the shirt. Always steam them before you wear them. But what I'm more so referring to here is that unintentional wrinkling in areas that shouldn't necessarily be wrinkled unless you just didn't steam them or iron them before wearing them. Areas like the collar on your shirt or the cuffs on your shirt. I see this all the time in belts, especially if they're fabric belts that go with dresses. Always give those a good steam before you wear them. It makes the bow ties look so much nicer, and you'll definitely look more expensive. I will link my favorite steamers for you down below. I have a really great travel option that's foldable, easy to travel with, and then I also have one if you have a ton of steaming to do that I love because the tank is really large, so I will link those for you down below. Mistake number 6 that's making your clothing look cheap is any sort of pilling or wear and tear. You could spend, again, I'm using the same example as earlier, but a $500 cashmere sweater is not going to look look like a $500 sweater if there is pilling. Now, cashmere is a natural fabric and it is prone to pilling. This is a normal process, but it does require that maintenance to make it look nice. And it's really affordable to do so just by getting a fabric shaver. If you have been out here on my channel for a while, you already know my love for this fabric shaver. I've mentioned it in so many different hacks here on my channel. It's so affordable on Amazon and it's a must-have in anyone's wardrobe. You can use this on your winter sweaters, on your coats, even your furniture. I've used it on my couch and even chairs. Any areas that have higher friction are more likely to get pilling. You can see this a lot on the sides of your arms or even on the sleeves. It can happen from your handbag if you wear a bag that's crossbody. I typically like to treat my garments kind of all at once. So typically at the beginning of the season when I pull out all my sweaters, I'll go through them, grab the fabric shaver and treat anything that's necessary. I go ahead and set aside items that need to go to the dry cleaner, like my coats that have been hanging up. It's also a great time to declutter things and get rid of things that I don't think I'm looking forward to wearing. Then I'll go ahead and treat anything that does need the depiller. That way I can store them and they're ready to go for the upcoming season. Mistake number 7 is wearing shoes that are too scuffed up. This can happen a lot with heels, especially I see this like very worn heel look, which just cheapens the look. And if you have a pair of shoes that you absolutely love, but they have looked better, take them to a cobbler. This can typically be under $40. They can clean them up, make them look so much better, and you don't have to go out and buy another pair of shoes. Tip number 8 has to do with jeans. There's a couple things that you want to pay attention to when shopping for jeans if you want them to look more expensive. First, you want to take a look at the zipper, make sure the coloring is correct, make sure there's no like green undertone to it, and also make sure that you don't see the zipper when you do zip them up and wear them. I would also recommend paying attention to the whiskering on jeans. You see this a lot around the upper thigh area, and this is a sneaky way that can make your hips look wider because of the horizontal lines. So it's something that I would just steer clear of unless you absolutely love how the jeans fit. And I think overall, less is more. The simpler the jean, the more expensive it's going to look. Mistake number 9 is wearing clothing that you're just not comfortable or confident in. You could be wearing a designer dress, and if you don't feel like $1 million in it, you're not gonna look $1 million in it. And another example that comes to mind is wearing a heel that you're just not confident walking in. That lack of confidence is easily gonna come across to others and automatically cheapen your look. Number 11 is just low quality seams. This is a telltale sign whether or not something is super cheap and was made in a factory by a machine. I see this all the time, especially like the gathering in the waist. It can be completely uneven, or even the pattern can look uneven, and it just looks so cheap. Number 12 is something I think can very easily be overlooked but makes a big difference, and that is scratches on your sunglasses. If you're wearing a pair of sunglasses that are overly scratched up, that's just gonna look like very cheap, low quality plastic. Typically, sunglasses that are a little bit better in quality will have a little more scratch resistance, but they can still just as easily scratch if you don't put them in their case or care for them properly, and you don't want that to happen to a designer pair of sunglasses. So make sure to store them correctly in a case, and if they do have a lot of scratches, that's just gonna cheapen your look. Number 13 is exposing something that should be hidden. So what comes to mind with that are those little elastic loops. I see this all the time. I think Forever 21, like they have those plastic loops on all of their hanger pieces so the clothes don't fall off the hanger. They are very stubborn things and will easily pop out, and you don't want those little strings to be coming out of your outfit. I personally always remove them. I have non-slip hangers, so that's really not an issue for me, and I find that they're more of a pain than anything to make sure that they're always kind of tucked in. So I personally just cut them out as soon as I buy an item that has that. And another example of this is any sort of tag. Obviously, like no one purposefully puts their tag out of their clothing, so that can just be a simple mistake, but especially look for tags that are coming through on items. I see this can happen a lot in dresses or skirts, or even like the security tags that you're supposed to cut away. Definitely make sure to remove those before wearing them. This can kind of go hand in hand with sheer fabrics because that's where I typically see this happen. Number 14 are those cheap little stringy belt loops. I despise these. I see them all the time on dresses. Anything that comes with a tie waist, you definitely want to be careful of those. Not all of them are treated equally. I find that you can find nice ones and they are somewhat helpful to have as long as it fits your proportions correctly. I'm talking about those really stringy ones that stick out a ton. They're a huge eyesore and definitely cheapen your look. I talked about this in another video on how to look more expensive in cheap Amazon clothes. So if you want to see my little tip on what to do if you have a piece like that, check out that video. I will link it down below. Number 15, you want to pay attention to any loose threads and cut those before you wear them. Sometimes you can cut them away and it's all good to go and it doesn't happen again. But if it continually happens, that's just an indication that the clothing was not made correctly. Also double check the lining underneath, because sometimes that's where you can get them kind of hanging down. Maybe a good idea to make a little emergency kit to keep in your bag that contains a tiny pair of scissors so you can easily snip those away. Number 16 is wearing the wrong undergarments. So obviously you don't want your bra straps to show. That will just cheapen your look overall. But you also want to pay attention to whether or not your garment would look better with a good piece of shapewear, or if it calls for something more seamless. You definitely don't want VPL, which is visible panty line, coming through, especially if you're wearing lighter fabrics. I personally took a more proactive approach in this, and from now on I typically only buy nude seamless things because I can wear them under everything and usually don't have to worry about it. And if you're not sure, have someone take a look before you leave the house. Number 17 is wearing a cheap belt. I added this one to the list because in my latest Zara haul, I had major complaints about a belt that came with this beautiful pleated skirt, and the belt just cheapened the look. It had that felt on the inside. Typically, if your piece is coming with a belt, don't have high expectations for the quality of it, because that is a very minimal factor in the price. So you're much better off just taking that off and switching it out for your own belt. Even if it's super affordable, it will look so much better. So whether you spend a lot of money on your wardrobe or if you're more of a baller on a budget, all of these definitely cheapen your look. Let me know what you thought of these down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, definitely check out this one. It's going viral and I know you will love it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on Thursday with a new fashion video. Bye.